Imagine Rome in 64 BC, not the Rome of emperors and gladiators, but a bustling republic full of ambition and danger. This wasn't the stable, powerful empire of later centuries. This Rome was a pressure cooker, a society riven by class tensions, political violence, and the looming threat of powerful generals. The gap between rich and poor yawned wide, and ambitious men battled for power. This was the world in which Marcus Tullius Cicero, a brilliant lawyer and gifted orator, decided to run for the highest office in the land, the consulship. The stakes were incredibly high. The consulship was the pinnacle of Roman political life. 2 consuls were elected each year, tasked with leading the Senate and commanding the armies. But in 64 BC, the very future of the Republic seemed to hang in the balance. Could this system of government, already creaking under the strain, survive the ambitions of its powerful men? Into this volatile arena stepped Cicero, a man from outside the traditional ruling class, determined to leave his mark on history. Cicero wasn't your typical Roman politician. He wasn't a general, dripping with the spoils of war, nor was he a member of one of those ancient families who treated the consulship like their own personal inheritance. He was a new man, an outsider from a wealthy but unconnected family from the provinces. His ancestors hadn't held high office. This was a significant disadvantage in a society obsessed with lineage and tradition. Yet Cicero had something even more potent than a famous last name: raw talent. He was a brilliant lawyer whose sharp mind and even sharper tongue had won him fame and a string of legal victories. More importantly, he was a gifted orator, a master of rhetoric, able to sway crowds with his words. In a world where public speaking was both an art form and a political weapon, Cicero's eloquence was a force to be reckoned with. Could this outsider, armed with his wit and words, convince the Roman people to put their trust in him and propel him to the highest office in the land? Winning an election in ancient Rome was no walk in the park. It was a brutal, expensive, and often dangerous business. Forget about televised debates or social media campaigns. This was a world of face-to-face persuasion where candidates literally rubbed shoulders with voters in the Roman Forum. Imagine a scene of utter chaos. The Forum, the heart of the city, crammed with people, a cacophony of noise, the air thick with the smell of sweat and ambition. Candidates, trailed by their supporters, would weave through the crowds, shaking hands, slapping backs, and pressing their case. They'd deliver grand speeches, promising the earth to anyone who would listen. And if a rival speech was proving a little too popular, well, there were always ways to deal with that, from hiring hecklers to resorting to more persuasive tactics. This was the rough and tumble world of Roman politics, and Cicero, for all his intellect and eloquence, would have to master it if he wanted to win. Luckily for Cicero, he had a secret weapon, his brother Quintus. This wasn't just brotherly love. Quintus was a shrewd political operator in his own right. Recognizing his brother's potential, he penned a practical guide to winning Roman elections, a sort of how to win friends and influence Romans. This handbook, known as the Commentariolum Petitionis, Little Handbook on Electioneering, became Cicero's roadmap to victory. Quintus's advice was blunt and practical. He stressed the importance of building a broad base of support, of cultivating relationships with key individuals and groups. He reminded Cicero that a successful campaign wasn't just about grand ideas, it was about understanding the hopes and fears of ordinary Romans. This wasn't just about Cicero's ambition, it was about convincing the Roman people that his victory was in their best interest. One of Quintus's key pieces of advice was deceptively simple. Get your name out there. He urged Cicero to be seen everywhere, attending every public event, every religious festival, every gladiatorial contest. The goal was to make himself familiar, even unavoidable, to the Roman electorate. This was retail politics, Roman style, and Cicero embraced it with gusto. He was to be seen shaking hands in the Forum, cheering with the crowds at the Colosseum, and paying his respects at the temples. He needed to look like a man of the people, approachable, relatable, someone who understood the concerns of ordinary Romans. This was all part of building that vital connection with the electorate, that sense that Cicero, for all his ambition, was one of them. Section 6. Friends in high places, patronage and its perks. In the cutthroat world of Roman politics, personal connections were everything, and patronage was the name of the game. This was a system of favors and obligations that bound Roman society together. Powerful patrons provided support, protection, and crucially, votes for their clients. In return, they expected loyalty, support for their own ambitions, and often a blind eye turned to any little irregularity. Cicero, despite his new man status, understood the importance of playing this game. He cultivated relationships with powerful patrons, men like Pompey the Great, a celebrated general whose support could make or break a candidate. These alliances weren't just about securing votes, they were about projecting an image of power and influence. If Cicero wanted to be seen as a credible candidate, he needed to show he could play the game and win. Section 7. The art of political warfare, outmaneuvering the opposition. Of course, no election is complete without a little mudslinging. Quintus, ever the pragmatist, dedicated a good chunk of his handbook to the fine art of political sabotage. This wasn't about policy debates or reasoned arguments. This was about destroying your opponent's reputation by any means necessary, spreading rumors, highlighting scandals, even inventing them out of thin air. All was fair game in the Roman political arena. Cicero, never one to shy away from a fight, proved a quick study. He skillfully exploited his rivals' weaknesses, painting them as corrupt, incompetent, or worse. He used his eloquence to devastating effect, turning their own words against them, exposing their hypocrisy, and leaving their reputations in tatters. This was political warfare, Roman style, and Cicero, armed with his sharp wit and even sharper tongue, proved a formidable warrior. Section 8. Hope and a promise, the keys to victory. But Quintus also understood that negativity could only take you so far. To truly win over the Roman people, Cicero needed to offer them something more, something positive. He needed to articulate a vision for Rome, a promise of a better future. This was particularly important in 64 BC. Rome was a society on edge, anxious about the future. People were looking for a leader who could offer stability, security, and a return to traditional values. Cicero, with his sharp political instincts, understood this. He tailored his message to appeal to these anxieties. He promised to restore order, to uphold the law, to defend the interests of the Roman people. He positioned himself as the champion of the ordinary citizen, the man who would stand up to the powerful and protect the weak. This message of hope, of a return to a more stable and prosperous era, resonated with voters. Section 9, a turning point in history, the legacy of Cicero's triumph. When the votes were finally counted, Cicero had achieved a stunning victory. He, the new man, the outsider, had been elected consul of Rome. It was a remarkable achievement, a testament to his intellect, his ambition, and perhaps most importantly, his ability to master the art of Roman politics. But Cicero's victory wasn't just a personal triumph, it was a turning point in Roman history. His consulship, though short-lived, would be marked by crisis and conspiracy. He would face down the Catilinarian conspiracy, a plot by a group of disgruntled aristocrats to overthrow the Republic. His actions, his courage in defending Rome, would cement his reputation as one of the greatest Romans of his age. But they would also earn him powerful enemies, men who would ultimately bring about his downfall. Cicero's story, like that of Rome itself, is a reminder that even in the midst of triumph, even at the pinnacle of power, the seeds of future tragedy are often sown.